Hello and welcome to Your City in Action. I'm your host, Marnie Ryan. Today on the program, I have the wonderful opportunity of getting to interview City Commissioner and Vice Mayor, Mr. Aaron Householter. Hello, Aaron. How are you?
Hi. How you doing?
Oh, thank you. You brought water. That's so nice.
I did bring water. I thought the opening shot looked better without it. So,
well, look at you looking out for us. That's so wonderful.
Public servant to the end. To the end.
Well, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's been going good. Had some. Been just finished out of the budget for the year at the city, and just kind of moving along.
Now, I have never interviewed you on Your City in Action, so I'm going to turn back the clock a little bit, if you don't mind, and tell me a little bit about you. You're a native Salinan?
Pretty much. I was born in Kansas City, but I've lived here for probably, without giving away my age,
a while?
30 plus years. So, maybe 40 plus years, but a while, somewhere in there. And mom moved here and lived on just kind of all over town and basically stayed, never left.
Now, when you were a young man growing up, not that you're not young now, was it like your life dream to be a city commissioner?
I did not even think about becoming a city commissioner until 15 minutes before the deadline of filing was. I got a phone call and somebody said, look, have you seen the candidates that are out there? And I'm not saying personally whether I felt like any of them were good or bad or whatever else. But I said, well, I really hadn't. I mean, I guess I had friends who had been commissioners, and I always ribbed them about the decisions they made and things like that. And they said, you should really get in there and file your paperwork. And maybe, I said 15 minutes, maybe it was an hour or something. And so I went down, filled it out, and that was it. I mean, we had the primary. I think I finished fifth, and I hadn't even advertised or done anything. It was just kind of a last minute thing. And I remember Don Merriman said, in our history, anyone who's ever been fifth never makes it to the top three. Usually the fourth and third might switch places, but that's about it. Well, not only did I make it in the top three, I made it into position number 2, which was a 4-year term. And so that allowed me to, as a term as mayor. So obviously I'm vice mayor now, and I'll be mayor next year. But no, I never thought of myself as being involved in anything with politics, other than just probably the way my parents raised me, a certain sense of right and wrong. And I suppose there came a point where I realized that, hey, maybe I can take that and do something with it, you know. Other than that, but not political from the standpoint of a true politician. And I think that's the nice thing about local politics, in a sense. They probably even shouldn't be called politics, because it really isn't. You know, we don't have all the backroom deals and things going on. It's pretty much like, there's a pothole here, it needs to be fixed, let's fix it, you know, or what's the priority. And so it's really about a nonpartisan, what's best for the city. And I don't know if you watch TED, it's not really TED TV, but it's sort of the online, you can watch these lectures.
Yes.
And there was a good article about how mayors should run the world, because cities tend to work together really well. Your mayors are generally part of your community. You know, it's not uncommon for me to, you know, stop by and help somebody or do something along those lines. And in fact, Commissioner Blanchard is, you know, up north doing the art project, which I'm sure a lot of people think is city money at work, and it's not. It's all private donations and things. But he's up there, and I went up and helped him. I haven't worked there near as much as he has, but, you know, raking rocks and doing something within their own city, you know what I mean? And so they have a real direct impact. And I thought it was an interesting article. I don't know that we should be running the world, but I think that there's a nice thought about it, how I think sometimes as we get higher in politics, we forget where we come from and who we have to answer to. And, you know, frankly, when we raise taxes or we make a decision, I have rental properties, my own houses, I have a commercial building, it raises them for me too. So obviously you really think, is this the best use of the money, and is it not? You know, and you're going to run into those kinds of things daily. I mean,
so what have been some of the biggest surprises? Because if I remember correctly, weren't you on the Planning Commission before you were on the City Commission?
I was on the Planning Commission, and I think it was a good education to sort of come in, because as you can see with this commission, we're very much about zoning, very much about planning the future for the city. And you know, a lot of this is the way it's always been done has upset some people, I'm sure. And they don't understand why we're doing things differently, and we do our best to explain it. But some people will never see it. They don't understand it, because, hey, I make money doing it this way. Why are you stopping my thing? And it's just, you have to, you know, you do your best to explain. But we're steering the city in a direction we think is most beneficial for it. One nice thing about the commission we have here is none of us benefit, really, that I'm aware of, financially from anything in the city. I mean, I don't have contracts with this. All my business is done out of town. And I think Kay's retired. John does. I guess he does some landscape. But you know, we don't let those kind of things make our decisions. I mean, I think we truly have a crew that does what they think is best for the community. We don't always agree. It's not always 5-0. I mean, as you saw last night, there was some split voting. But I think that we do have a good commission that's really concerned about the community. You know, and that's. I'm not saying we haven't had those in the past, but this one definitely feels a lot more than maybe the one that was slightly previous before, that was maybe a little bit more business as usual kind of. I mean, we're definitely making some changes in there, and then people are always a little upset when you change what they're used to doing for 30 years or 40 years. But, you know, we feel like that's given us time to see, hey, this trend isn't working. And so, I mean, obviously some of the zoning things that we've talked about. So
now, tell me this, and maybe this is a little premature to ask,
Sure.
but do you foresee yourself, I mean, you're going to be mayor next year, but do you foresee yourself continuing or running again?
You know, it's one of those things where you get really excited about what the possibilities for the community are, and you think to yourself, you know, like a big thing for me is I would love to revamp our parks. I think our parks, nothing against the Parks Department, we just as a city have not necessarily put the money in there as we should. I mean, I think about Indian Rock and Lakewood and Oakdale Park and how beautiful those parks could be. And I'd love to see us dig out that pond at Indian Rock and put some terracing around it and clear out some of the trees and really make it a show place for people to go to, because we've got these huge parks. These aren't just flat, simple parks. We've got really amazing parks. And I would really like to see us redo those. So it's one of those things you think, okay, will that be done in the next year? No. Okay, then I'm going to need to run again to be able to kind of see that vision through and that continuation. And you know, people talk about incumbents this, incumbents that, you get lazy. I don't necessarily think that happens on a city level. I think you get in there and maybe you're more efficient because you learn how things work, but it helps you see that vision through. And a lot of times when I'm talking to city staff, I always say, look, we're here temporarily, you're here long term. So if something we're saying seems like maybe you tried it before, whatever else, you know, let's have that dialogue back and forth to make sure we're not wasting time on something that's either been done or make sure it was done correctly and it didn't work, or, you know, I mean, you go through all that process. So, you know, I think I would like to continue to serve, whether it's elected or just continuing to volunteer or doing some of those things. I can, you know, some of those meetings, let's face it, we make $3,600 a year, of which I donate mine to various soccer and the Steeple Theater and studio time and lots of other things. But it's really, I mean, I think that Monday night, when you think about, I'm there from 4 o'clock, and last night, I mean, there have been nights we've got out at 10 o'clock at night, you know, and it's because a couple of us, myself included, we talk a lot and we ask a lot of questions. But what we find is when we don't ask those questions, a lot of what well, I shouldn't say a lot, but a percentage of what we deal with on City Commission come as a direct result of what I consider bad decisions that were made sometimes 30, 40 years ago, that they zoned something a certain way and now we're dealing with it. And had they thought about all the ins and outs and I think the popular phrase is now the unforeseen consequences, or whatever the phrase is that's so popular right now. But I think that we try to avoid that, and we want everything up front. We want everybody to know that we're looking at all angles. You know, even last night, for an example, we denied a zoning change for a guy who'd bought some property. I was still thinking in the back of my head, okay, I don't want to change the zoning for this, but what can I come up with that can achieve what this guy needs temporarily, you know? And so we ask about the ag exemption, or ag designation. Can we make it ag? Could he put up a certain amount? You know, we still, even though we may not want to make those changes, we're not out to get somebody or to cut them off or to take their livelihood away. But what's tended to happen in the past is, here you are, you're in basically an empty room with one or two people in front of you. They're saying, hey, I want this. And you're thinking, who's it going to hurt? You know, let me just make this small change for this guy. And before you know it, you have zoning issues all over town. And that's what we're facing today on a certain zoning. And what you have to realize is changing that guy's zoning, sure, maybe it helps him do what he's doing, but it affects everyone around him. If you look at our zoning map, it's basically law. It says this is how we'll plan our city. So if you're a housing developer and you come in and you want to build a bunch of houses, and you expect this area around here is also housing, but all of a sudden we turn it into industrial park because, well, this guy, we kind of felt sorry for him. We thought, well, you know, I hate to make the guy lose his livelihood. Let's let him put up an industrial park. This guy who just built a housing development is thinking, wait a second, I built this based on what your comprehensive plan was. I assumed, it's more than a real estate agent going, oh, they're never going to build anything over here. You know what I mean? Which is what we hear every time they go to build a new development. Actually, my realtor told me they were never going to build back there. We always hear that. But, you have an obligation to that property owner to sort of, unless there's a darn good reason to change that zoning around him, to try and stick to a plan. Most cities put a plan together 30 years ago, and we change ours like every 10 years because we have to revamp all the changes we've made along the way. So this commission's very rigid about that, and I'm sure it upsets people because you buy a piece of property, you come in and you say, well, I want to make it more valuable. And they expect us just to roll over and say, okay, we're going to do that for you. And we just can't, because we have an obligation of 47,000 other people to protect their rights as well. So, it's a tough position to be in. I mean, you want to be the nice guy. You want to go, how can I help you? But sometimes you can't. So.
Do you find, since you've been elected on the city commission, that people treat you differently?
Well, I mean, not really. I mean, not the people who I knew and my friends. But I mean, there may be people who I see out and about who might, say, hey, great decision, or yeah, come on, what were you thinking on that? And I get that, and that's fine. I mean, the criticism is as important as anything. I mean, obviously, I prefer somebody to say, hey, we think you made the right move. And there are times like the art on the Greeley Street Bridge that, it's like you're not making anybody happy, because the art people, who I generally support public art and things like that, but I didn't think that was a good project. So now you say, I don't want to give $20,000 because I think it's kind of a backstreet, but it's like Blanchard said it best, you want art in your house, but you're not necessarily going to spend money and put it in your laundry room. And really, in a sense, the Greeley Street Bridge is kind of the laundry room. The Midway is going to be the main entrance, or Oakdale. If we're going to spend money on art, it should be in those areas. And another thing is, I don't necessarily feel that sculptures are the only art. There's audio and video, which is obviously the industry I'm in. There's many other art forms out there. And I think we tend to focus a little too much on sculptures, but myself personally, but that's me. But I do like public art. So when you vote no on that, well, now all of a sudden the art community is mad at you. I can't believe, you said no to that. It's just kind of like, in a way, I thought I was doing them a favor, because I think we all would have been probably beheaded had we, there would have been a little revolution. Let's face it, we're still reeling from that South 9th Street project, which I will point out to all our at-home players, wherever you are, camera, was voted by a previous commission, not this commission. We didn't vote for that art. But we still, every time I read the blogs, which is more and more rare, people are, oh, at 9th Street, they're just spending money on art. Well, as far as I know, I don't think we've spent I don't know if we've spent any money necessarily on art, other than we bought a couple of inexpensive sculptures on the sculpture tour. But we definitely haven't done that. I think there were a lot of issues with that art. I probably would not have supported that really at any time, not even because we were in a financial situation. I think it's a lot of money to spend on a single piece of art. I think the location was bad. I'm not necessarily real happy with the design. It looks kind of neat when it's lit up, and you see through the trees, but the pinhole, the holes that you look through, that's kind of perforated metal, unless you're looking straight on, you can't see it. So to me, the implementation, the art, all of the things to me would have been a big negative. That being said, now the art people go, oh, guys, anti-art. It's not that at all. I just have a different view of what I think public art is. I've always felt like if you're going to do public art, you take a broad approach to it, and then you pique people's interest. When you go to something very narrow, like a modern piece of art or something like that, you're going to limit who your audience is. But if you come in with nice, something that's nice, or a design, or even landscape in the form of art, and people say, that looks very nice, I like that, and then let them find their revision of the art, I think it's a lot better. I think some of our projects have been a little too narrow in scope, and it makes a lot of the people feel alienated, and it should be a welcoming thing, and it should be a positive thing, and maybe I disagree with some of the art people on that, but I do support the arts, but just maybe not some of the choices that have been made. And let's face it, it was a very bad choice to come into us and ask for more money for art on the Greeley Street Bridge 2 weeks after we raised the mill levy to fix roads and fix infrastructure, and then they come and, I mean, it was just kind of like, guys, so it was, but that's the things you run into. So they always, politicians have different ways of saying it, or elected people, and that is pretty much from the day you're in office, you start losing friends, you know what I mean? And you begin to alienate. And my attitude is, I'm doing what I think is right. I'm doing the best of what I think is best for the city. There is a plan. These aren't just random abstract thoughts that are just flying out there one week, I'm making this decision. There is an overarching plan of what I would like to see the community become. And if it doesn't work for the people and it ends up being not what they don't want, then they won't elect me the next time. I'd like to think I'm doing a good job, but you don't know. You know, the community sets its own standards, and I'm only one voice of that. You know, so you know, you hope you make the place better. And this is a long answer for asking me if I'm going to be in politics.
That's
again,
okay.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. But I mean, but I mean, if you ask me, would I stay in it? Yes, to see visions through, I would like to. You know, and there's just projects hitting us all the time. We've had the river people come in again and say, well, wouldn't this be nice? And you've got the people wanting to build the rec center. Wouldn't this be nice? And you know, everybody's idea is great. How do we pay for it? You know, I've talked to some pretty influential people in town, or people that I consider accomplished and good city fathers and mothers, if you will. And they basically have all said the same thing. We need to invest in our community. We need to do something that separates us from something else. But finding what that is and finding something we all agree on is, of course, the task. Mm-hmm. And that's the hard thing. Would it be great to see a complete river project and a clean Smoky Hill River flowing through there? It'd be fantastic. Do I think it's worth $76 million or $100 million or whatever it ends up costing in the high end, or even the $12.1 million to clean the water out? I don't know. You know, I mean, that's for the public to decide. I'd like to see some water flow through there again. I don't know that I'm all for all the amphitheaters and all the other little things that were on there. I don't know how successful those would be. I like a lot of what Hutchinson did to their downtown, and they have kind of a nice, the river maintains kind of a river, then it gets downtown and kind of has a nice terraced area and layered. And you know, maybe that's a good starting point. I'd like to replace that Iron Street culvert with a bridge because it does welcome you to downtown. You know, something over there maybe. But that's only one aspect. The rec center, you know, if you look at the data, there's a need for it. Mm-hmm. You know, our people are leaving town and doing sports events, we're losing money. They will say, hey, city, invest $6 million in this or whatever. Help us because we think we can make money or save money or anything else. But then it's who's going to run it? Who's going to maintain it? Is it fair to charge $6 million? You know, there are a lot of people who feel like government is fire, police, and streets. Mm-hmm. That's it. Anything above and beyond is not important. But most of us would agree that we like other amenities. You know, I get calls all the time. Why are they spending money on this? And my response is, well, what does the city spend money on that you like? You know, somebody who plays sports may not like art. Okay, well, if the art people aren't being supported, should we be supporting your ball diamonds or your soccer fields or whatever else? So it's, you know, obviously this seems stupid and redundant to say, but I'll say it. And it wouldn't be the first time I've said something stupid and redundant. But the community is made up of lots of different types of taxpayers, and they all have their own interest, and they all have their own stake in the community. So there are people who love art, and who there are people who, you know, think that sports are really great, and so you have to satisfy all of them. Yeah, we could go back to a city that's just streets, police, and fire protection. I mean, that'd be very easy. But I don't think you'd keep many of the young people here in town who we're trying to achieve. I mean, our population is aging, and we need to bring a younger generation in that's going to stay, and we need to bring the kind of things in that make them want to be a part of the community. And as I get older, those things may not really be important to me. I might think, well, you know, why are they spending money on that? But I'm not of that generation anymore, and maybe that's the kind of things. And you know, I'm pretty excited. I've met some young kids. I went out and lectured at K-State, and I met some young kids. One in particular who'd been in the military and moved here, and bought a house, and said, you know, I love this town. And I think he's from Kansas City or something, and you know, talked about what he really liked about the community. And I told him how we were really trying to start working on redoing North Salina and bringing into kind of work, live, shop areas, like all within walking distance. He says, you know, when he was in overseas, that's how it was. And you know, younger generations see that. Mm-hmm. You know, that's how they are. And as those things change, if we want to keep that population, we have to look at what they want, the connectivity, the exercise, the family-oriented things. We can't afford to do everything we want to do. I wish we could, but we can't. You know, roads are a big thing. It's such an extensive system, and it requires so much maintenance. And the more we build this city out and don't gain population, which is a big issue for us, the harder it is to maintain that infrastructure. We can never lower your taxes as long as your city size grows and your population doesn't. And that's something we've really tried to curtail by putting a moratorium on specials. for developers to keep building new homes. Now, they will argue that we have to have these new homes because people want them. But I think, well, if that's the case, then the market will drive it. The city needs to use its funds to encourage growth back into the areas that we've abandoned. We just can't leave whole swaths of Salina behind. We just can't do that. We can't afford to. And if we're ever going to cut the taxes down, we have to bring up our population density. Not necessarily our population, just the density, how many people we're putting per square mile. You look at a place like Longmont, Colorado, 4,000 people per square mile. Salina is 1,800. Well, it shouldn't surprise you that if you look at property taxes on their houses, it's about half as much. And they've got plenty of amenities too. But when you sprawl out like that, and when we say sprawl, it's not sprawl in the sense of a Chinese city that, whatever. but we've grown substantially and not gained a lot of population. Been slower, I think slower than the state average. It was. That may have changed, but I mean, it's still very slow. And so we have to think about things like that. The development community, of course, is very mad. They say, wait, this is the way we've always done it. We got to do it this way. But we have to look out for 47,000 people, not 30 people who build houses.
Tell me this, what kept you in Salina? Because I know you joke, but you're still young. And because you've always lived here, right? Since you moved here with your family.
I have, and of course my family's a big part of it. Two of my brothers still live here. My parents still live here. And you grow up here with friends, and they're good people. It's people, there's probably a good percentage of the people who just don't even really care what goes on. You never hear from them. But there are core people. And when you look at like the Clean Up North Salina, and we have 350 people show up, or some of the things that we do, people care about this community, and it's getting them all together with a singular vision that can really make something happen. And that's impressive to me. Sure, I'm like everybody else. I've looked around and said, what else could I do? Where could I move to? What would benefit me? Where is lower taxes? Where is more things that I'm into? But the truth of the matter is, playing in a band for 25 years and touring around the country and doing all these things, you realize that kind of wherever you go, there you are. And I tended to come back to Salina and say, it's a pretty darn good city to live in. Is it perfect? No. Does it have its quirks? No. But we have a diverse economy. So when we lose one plant, yeah, it's a bad deal, and Salina hurts from it. But it's not like losing the airplane industry in Wichita, where the whole town would probably collapse. We have a diverse economy that allows us to be somewhat robust. You pretty much know if you're buying a house, it's going to probably be worth more money down the road, provided you maintain it and do all those things. So, I think that's probably the biggest reason. It's pretty centrally located. I've always felt like if there's really a place I want to go see, I can vacation there, and I come back here. I'm with my family. Not to just mention my extended family, too, with my aunts and uncles living close, and they're aging in population as well. So, they're aging as well. So, that's been a big part of it, too. And just so many memories, driving around on those county roads when I'm a kid. It's just what you identify yourself with and think this is who I am.
That's very cool. Now, tell me this. Looking out in the future, what is something you want to really accomplish as a city commissioner, vice mayor, and soon-to-be mayor in your time? Just assuming finishing out this term.
Well, it seems probably minor to some people, but I've always had a massive pet peeve with people parking in the yards. And we achieved Aaron's Law with our minimum maintenance code. Now we have it. Now, of course, like anything else, unfunded mandates or whatever. But we sort of said, okay, we're going to start making people paint their houses and fix them up because, frankly, a lot of our town looks pretty bad. And how do we do that? So we put this in place. It's now illegal. It's always been against the law to park your car, but it's a process. We'd send a letter. It would take repeated efforts, and if they were working, they'd drive their car off the yard, and then they'd come back, well, it wouldn't be there for 24 hours. So now pretty much it's a law enforcement can drive by, see a car parked in the yard, ticket them, and remedy that situation, because let's face it, it looks bad. It looks bad. And so that was one of the things I really hoped to achieve, which, like I said, seems small, but I think it really has a far-reaching effect on how your community looks, and the minimum maintenance codes. I would really like to see our parks get fixed up. I'd like to see us really focus in on our infrastructure. We do a good job. Martha Tasker over at the Water Department has really done a great job of maintaining our infrastructure there and working forward. The streets guys are really working overtime, doing a good job. We've got some new equipment that allows us to do some things that we used to have to hire out. But just really fix our infrastructure up. We need the city to be here for a long time. And so it doesn't seem very exciting. It's not flamboyant. I just want to see us make use of what we have. I'm not a real big fan of necessarily going out and doing something completely new. But I do want to see us make the best use of the items we have. The Bicentennial Center is a good example. We couldn't just leave it sitting there. You know, it cost us $1 million a year just sitting there. We had to do something, so we brought in a management company, which right off the bat saved us about $250,000. They brought up some new things that make it a little bit more interesting, and Chris Bird over there that runs the place is fantastic. He's a great guy. I know John Blanchard went to Commissioner Blanchard went to an event over there, and when he walked in, Chris was sitting there taking tickets, and then later on he went to get something at the concession stand, and Chris was there flinging hot dogs. You know what I mean? That is a hands-on manager for the place, and that's the kind of people that we want to attract to this community. And Chris seems to like the community, and he's a younger guy. And that's the kind of, you know, the youth and things that we want brought in, and you know, they're saving us money there. Just the savings alone actually pay for the improvements we're doing to the Bice Center. So whenever we can do that, it's a great situation. The lighting downtown was another example that the efficiency of those other lights was the LEDs will actually pay for themselves in 23 years. Well, we kept the other lights for like 27 years. So if we kept them even 4 years less than we kept those lights, they're actually free. I mean, how many projects can you do where at the end of it, it didn't cost you anything, you know? Now, we've added a few lights on the side that may skew those numbers, but for the overall part, I mean, you're talking about spending $3 million, and at the end, okay, maybe you're out $500,000 for an entire redo of a project. Added lights where there were never lights before. So things like that you're improving your city. Of course, there's people out there, oh, I can't believe you're spending money on that. You can't believe you're, you know, but you've got to fix up what you've got and make the best of it. And that's why I say the parks, our streets, our buildings, working with the community to fix up their properties. We have a new program that's going to allow you on your water bill to donate a certain amount of money. So people always say, well, okay, you're doing this minimum maintenance code. What happens if an 80-year-old woman or man or somebody is out there and can't paint their house? What do you do in that situation? Well, for one, we have excellent volunteers in this town, but for two, we're going to give people an opportunity to be able to donate money to a fund that allows us to go out and take care of our population. You know what I mean? And you can argue, well, I mean, again, this opens up the whole door. You'll get those people who say, well, they should take care of their own property. They should do whatever. And that's, you know, and you live how you want to live. My attitude is that we kind of do our best as a community to take care of each other. I'm not requiring you to pay. I'm just asking that you give something to your community if you want to, you know. And I think it was a great idea. And I don't know if Gary Hobby over there came up with it or some of the people over there in our planning department. But, you know, it's those kind of things that gets the community connected again. And rather than us all fighting about the details of how do we spend this money or whatever else, let's just put Salina first and say, we want what's best for the community. Everybody has different ideas, but let's talk about it. Arguing about it doesn't do anything. Of course, I'm the worst arguer in the world. It's easy for me to sit here and say, let's talk about it. But let's talk about it as long as you listen to my idea. But it is difficult. But that's the important thing, is to put the city first and to say, what are we going to do to make it a better community for everybody? And that means everybody, you know. That doesn't mean we can get down to the nuances of this one guy wants this one thing. But, you know, I've talked about before, and I don't know what the insurance implications are, but, you know, what about a gun range that the city owns or something along those lines? We have a lot of avid people who are gun owners who, you know, what about something like that? Or, you know, we've got basketball, or we've got, you know, all these, but we have people with different interests. And if we get enough people with that particular interest, shouldn't we be doing things for them too? You know, or could there be a public-private partnership on some of these things, like the rec center? So, you know, just anything that makes it a great place for everybody to live in a city that when people leave, they're proud of. When they say, where are you from? You don't kind of go, oh, I'm from Salina. You know, trail on. Where people say, I'm in this really cool community that has a lot of volunteers, and we get together and we have a really great river festival, and we have a really great you know,
Access television station.
Next year we have a really handsome mayor. You know, I mean, there's all of these things that, you know, that really, you know, you want people to be your salesman. You want people to go out there, and you don't want them to feel bad about their community. You don't want them to feel like the city doesn't care. I mean, trust me, we care. You know, if you think it's easy to tell somebody no, if you don't think that I don't think about that when I go home. You know, at night, you do. You know, you tell a guy, I'm sorry, I can't change the zoning. I'm sorry you bought this piece of property, and you thought it was zoned a certain way, and it's not, and, you know, I can't change it for you to make that better. I mean, I think about it. I go home, and you stop, and you kind of go, you know, what can we do for this guy? What, you know, I can't go spot zone in this, and I can't change this, but can we, is there, you know, some kind of thing we could, you know, I mean, you struggle with those things. It's easy to say yes to stuff. It's hard to say no. But that's why we're here, I mean, not necessarily to say no, but I mean to try and make those decisions. And I think sometimes people think, I'm very flippant when I talk, and I'm very, I get angry really easy, especially at people that I feel like have manipulated the system to use the city or to use the taxpayers for personal gain, and they don't care about the community. I'm all for people making money, but when you do it at the risk of the taxpayers, or you do it in a way that doesn't benefit the community and only benefits you, that kind of bothers me. You know what I mean? And when it's taxpayer money, like I said, go out and make all your money you want. But when it's the city involved, I mean, I take a different approach. When I sell equipment to schools and things like that, or community access, for instance.
Yes.
It's always discounted, because I know a lot of retailers think, well, that's my chance to get full retail for it. I feel the opposite way. I feel like this is my community. This is where I live. Why would I want to charge them? Because all that does is, that makes more taxes for me. And yeah, okay, maybe I'm taking the brunt of it if I'm selling them the stuff at cost or a little over cost. But I think you have to give to your community where you live. It's your home. I mean, really, it really is. We need to stop thinking of our house as our home. We need people to think of the community as their home.
Now, I know this may become as a surprise, but I got to wrap this up. But tell me one thing that people may not know about Commissioner Aaron Householter, Vice Mayor, soon to be Mayor.
One thing they may not know
Don't you
about
hate when people put you on the spot like that? Because you are a lead singer of a very successful band in town.
I don't know about successful, but no, I think most people may know that. If they don't come up and talk to me face to face, they probably don't know I have two different colored eyes.
I know. I didn't notice that for the longest time when I first met you. I was like, wow.
But that's it. Let's see. Gosh, other than that, I don't think there's too much secrets. I'm pretty loudmouth. I don't hide too much. Pretty much what you see is what you get. Yeah, I don't know any secrets.
Well, people probably know you're a musician. Who's your favorite band?
Always been the Beatles.
Always the Beatles.
Always
Okay.
been the Beatles. Always been the Beatles. But there's so many good ones out there. There's so many good ones. Unfortunately, none in the last 20 years. But for an old guy like me.
Whatever. Okay. Favorite color?
Green.
Green. Okay, this is good to know. Awesome.
They say geniuses pick green.
And so very humble,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Well, Aaron, you are so delightful to talk to, and I'm so glad you came here.
No, it's great. It's great to be here, and I think it's a great show because I think it gives you an opportunity to let the people at home know what goes on in the city. Some things they don't, that maybe I mean, the disinformation or misinformation or no information is the worst. People can come out. Now they can really hate me now that they've seen me in real life. But for most people, they maybe don't know the whole story. And they go, well, why'd they do that? And I think you showing the city and kind of showing how your city works kind of helps that. And I will say that I guess I'll sign my part off by saying that one thing I do want to point out is we have excellent city staff and excellent city workers. And I knew that before, but being a part of it and seeing how much they help people and the smiles on their faces and I think we've got a great city manager who oversees that whole organization and I couldn't be happier with the staff that we have and all the way down from summer hire people to employees that have been with us 30 years, 40 years. I know our clerk just put in 15 years. She celebrated her 15-year anniversary. I didn't know I thought she was like 30. I didn't realize she must have started working when she was young. But
yes.
And that's one thing too. And when you have an excellent support staff like that, it just makes our job a lot easier as far as information and things, and there's never a shortage of, you feel bad. Oh, I don't want to make me a photocopy, you don't want them to actually, but they're there. Anything you need, it's bizarre. I can only imagine how the presidents must feel as they, it's like if this is the way we get treated on a city level, it's pretty amazing and how much excellent work they do. But I can only imagine up at that level what it must be like. But I couldn't be happier with the staff and the crew that we've got over there working. It's really great.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron. And I know it's always interesting when you're on the City Commission, and I'm very excited for next year. Actually, is it April when you take over?
I think so, yeah.
April.
I plan to do my best to be calmer and let the other commissioners maybe be a little more confrontational. I'll try and just sit back. But, you get passionate. You get passionate. You care about where you are and what happens in your city. And like I said, you don't like to see people take advantage of the city or maybe not be an equal partner with us. And so, you tend to get a little passionate sometimes, I guess.
Well, no pressure, but on camera. So when you're mayor, you'll come back, right, and give us a little mayor perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Awesome. Very
absolutely.
good. Well, thank you so
I'll
much.
have a different favorite color then.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to, be thinking of some of those crazy little questions I just might ask.
You got it.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much for watching Dear City in Action.